Hello, hello. How is everyone doing? We had a jump in the dollar, fall off in oil, huge rally over the last couple of days on Bitcoin. And man, NQ is still holding in there. Same thing with the ES. ES is still holding in there. At these extreme high levels. Oh man, you can see the tilts. I've been reading some outlooks, and those outlooks have not been so happy about the recent housing information that has come out today. Right? NAHB came out today. According to Moody's, excluding the sharp rebound in builder confidence around the pandemic, the current 6-month change in the NAHB housing market index is the second, well, no, it's just straight up the largest on record. Oh my god. This is the largest 6-month change in the housing market index in the United States on record. Now here's, as the music fades out, here's one of the major things to keep in mind. Powell said that housing's current revival sounds too restrained in his press conference, right, from last week. He said, "We now see housing putting in a bottom and maybe even moving up a little bit." Yeah. So we may we may see some more hawkish Fed, and that's probably one of the reasons why we saw stronger dollar here, and not only just any sort of stronger dollar. Check this out. For the month, the probability weighted pivot low for the month is at 101.96, and we tapped it. Let's see, if you guys have any assets you want me to cover, go ahead and start making a few requests now if you want. I'll go ahead and keep the music nice and low. Let me know how the music is with you guys. Yeah, we could certainly see a more hawkish Fed if the data continues to come in hot here on the housing market. But this was my expectation from FOMC. Now, don't get me wrong, this one day has kind of tripped us up. But overall, net, the dollar index is still doing its thing. Yeah, looking at these closing probabilities here, we could either stay in this range, go ahead and make that small, make that blue. There we go. Boom, done. So top end of that range, you can see a lot of our probabilities are roughly around that price. And then bottom end of this range, roughly. Yeah, that's the S1 monthly pivot. Great. So I think we'll end up closing DXY either somewhere around here, or I'm going to be watching for any breaks of this level right here. 102.7. I think that's Kiss FM in Los Angeles, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, cross above that, and you're probably going to close closer towards the monthly central pivot if you get above here. Whoa. Let's try a quick refresh on these settings. Wow. Look how big that histogram got. Man. Yep. So remember when I was day trading way over here? Actually, where did that? Oh, there's the larger drawing. I went ahead and I did this analysis earlier last week, roughly around here. I said, you know, you can assume that we have this larger linear trend going on, but until you crack this upper or lower bound, you're probably safe of assuming that this is going to be the trend you continue going on. And we cracked it. We cracked it. The linear trend did not hold for these 2 days here. And therefore, now you're on a new trend. And now you got all these huge moves higher. And look at the low. Right there. Went way past the, I gotta turn down that song. A little too hype for me. A little too hype for me. Yeah. 21% of the time, about a fifth of the time, you get your low for the month on Bitcoin roughly around here. And that's where we ended up, which was really, really great. Alrighty. And then as far as upside, I think it's like way up here or something. Yeah. So either no, I haven't even seen this one yet. Oh, not again. Not again with the monthly callouts for the probability weighted pivot. Oh my god. Yeah, it didn't catch that low, but it caught that low on dollar, and now it's catching this high. Like, look, it's probability based. So sometimes it's going to go past it, sometimes it's going to undershoot it, and sometimes, more frequently than I like to admit, it just goes right to the price. Oh, man. It is so cool. That is so cool. Yeah, but if you go past this R2 pivot, you're going to be dealing with these tail risks here. Your high, your top for the month probably comes in somewhere above R3. This isn't saying that 35% of your probabilities are between R3 and R3.5. The way this is programmed is that it's telling you, hey, 35% of your probabilities are just flat above R3, because I'm not programming every single arbitrary level of pivot point in this version in the indicators. No, thank you. Okay. What else can we check out? Oh yeah, let's check out the high pivot probabilities, and you can kind of see, right? You go past this R2 pivot, you're gonna probably be dealing with highs up here. You go past this R3 pivot, and now you're dealing with the typical Bitcoin tail risks. So yeah, be on the more cautious side when it comes down to anticipating that this is the exact like Pico top. Don't get me wrong, it's probably not the worst idea in the world to, if I was actually trading, Bitcoin super actively, right? Like I'm not day trading or even swing trading, I'm position trading it. But when it comes down to this sort of stuff, it's like, yeah, I wouldn't mind selling a little Bitcoin up here. And I noticed that when I was listening to people, some Bitcoin traders discuss their trades over the day, today, over the afternoon, and this morning. There's quite a few of them who are saying, I'm going to get out a little bit here. I'm going to get out a little bit here. Yeah. Crude. We got crude. Man, oh man. Did this thing have a pretty bonkers month so far. It's just been so volatile. And the volatility is still continuing here with the last day's price movement. Oh my god. We didn't get to our probability way to pivot low or way down here, but who's to say that we can't with the remaining amount of time. There's no seasonal information to go off of. All right. I was looking for something. Maybe there's something there that could take us low, but in all seriousness, we're just, you could legitimately draw a linear regress range here. I think we do this to a Monday over here. And there's your linear regressed range. And you can see once we got towards the top over here, we start to hit it. And note that when I'm drawing my linear regression, I'm excluding these candles from the calculation. So these lines getting projected out are an actual forecast from where these bubbles start. So yeah, I don't know if I would have been selling oil so heavily there, but you know what? That was a mean reversion trade based off these assumptions. If you're trading with these assumptions, right? You're trying to sell a deviation and then take it to the mean reversion, or buy a deviation here and take it to the mean, buy a deviation, take it to the mean. But that's when you're looking in sample here, when you want to start looking at a sample. It's like, okay, well, how reasonable is this? Because you can go ahead and use this exact same process on Bitcoin, and you saw, oh, well, the other assumption you have to have is once you start going past the deviation significantly, you have to assume that the linear regression here is dead. It just does not apply. Alrighty. Oh, what else is there to cover? Oh, S&P. Well, you can see right here, this is where the tail risk starts to occur when you start going up, and away, right? So, yeah, it makes sense. Maybe some people were getting their shorts on roughly around here. I know a few guys who were getting their shorts on around here, right? You can see how this is the edge of that tail risk. And, that can make sense. It's like, oh, we're at the edge of that. But, when your momentum is just so freaking strong here, it doesn't make sense to sell into this until maybe you get a signal actually quite maybe a little bit like that. It depends, frankly, on how much more continuation lower you get, because Lord, you don't want a situation like this where it comes down, then comes back up, right? And you see what happened here, it's just all sideways. Yeah, sometimes momentum indicators don't actually give you any actionable information. So unless you're an actual expert in determining like, oh yeah, the situation we have right now is highly autocorrelated and relatively low volatility, there's different definitions of momentum that are more robust than I have some moving averages and I condense them into an oscillator, right? But sometimes for simple things, it's not the worst idea in the world. Like here's a volatility adjusted MACD, the MACDV, and you can see how that it comes down to roughly giving you about the same view, but I'd say it's a little more robust, maybe, at least for this current application, for this fit of data we're looking at. So yeah, that sort of selected bias sort of thing, it'll run you over if you try and selectively do interpretations on different charts with different trading tools. The more you can generalize a trading tool, the better, right? That's one of the reasons why I like, pivot probabilities and range probabilities, because you can generalize probabilities a little more easily, and you understand that there are very clear assumptions you're making with the probabilities that you're interpreting. So the trading rules can be a little easier, just a little easier. So most of your tops for the month on NQ show up roughly around here. Call it 14.6, 14.7. Or they come up around here, which is 15, 150. Very rarely do you get your like top for the month up here, because usually once you go past this R1.5 pivot and you go into these lower, thinner probability areas, you're now dealing with the likelihood of getting some sort of crazy move way up here. Not the best thing in the world. Not the best thing in the world to try and anticipate, like, oh, let me go short right here. Yeah, if you still have your bearish bias, go for it. But it's like, hey, understand that you're now dealing with very low probability spacing here. So it's like, just be very, very cautious, right? Very, very cautious. Oh, one more thing. Let's look at the closing for the month. Yeah, I'm looking at these closes. 93% of the time, you end the month below the R1.5 pivot. I can make a nominal expectation that we end below the R1 monthly pivot. And that'd be quite a bearish move. Are we actually going to say this? Well, this is the nominal expectation that I have. So I have some expectancy, I have some probability that I'm anticipating that we'll actually see. I could go and put my cursor right here and see, like, oh, 75% of the time, the low, or rather the close for the month, is below the R1 monthly pivot. So I feel pretty all right saying, okay, this is a reasonable expectation to make when 75% of the time this occurs. But just as easily, right, you can linear regress this huge exponential move and just say, well, assuming that this trend continues, you'll probably be at like 15.8, right, by the beginning of next month. We can go ahead and do that and see where those expectations would lie. So let's start there. Yeah, so once you start to deviate significantly from this trend, that's when we know, like, hey, the assumptions we were making for the last month of trading here, going up, and up on the NASDAQ, the assumptions we were making during this point in time, or the conditions we were assuming or were actually trading at during this point in time, have now changed once we actually start deviating from this linear trend. That is, unless the conditions, just accelerate up, up, up and away. But there's no expectation of that, and there's still more macro downside risks because it looks like housing is rebounding, and when you see housing rebounding, it's not going to be good for your inflation. Let's see. Anything else that I should cover? Because these are all the major assets. So we got the dollar, we got the Bitcoin, we got the crude, we got the NASDAQ, and we did the ES as well. As far as a webcam goes, I'm going to be back starting this next week. Sundays is when Father's Day came around and I started staying up late. My sleep schedule kind of got thrown off. So come this next week, 4:30 East, Pacific, 7:30 Eastern, I'll be around and I'll have the camera on. But for today and tomorrow, I'm just going to be taking it easy. And it seems like the rebound is probably going to happen in a few of these assets. One of the things with this Bitcoin rally that I've heard is that there's just some people who felt like, and I have this sentiment too, is that it feels like, what was it? The rally way back. Yeah, like a lot of people felt like this rally was unnatural, right? Because they didn't really understand all the reasons why this thing actually moved, and then in hindsight they go ahead and they find all the on-chain analysis or the news events in hindsight. It's just, those are people who aren't actually reading outlooks or reading any news or doing any in-depth research on the asset that they're trading, and they're just seeing this thing go up, 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 and away. Yeah, and we're getting people making similar statements of what was going on over here. And that just makes me think, okay, maybe there's something that has staying power that's occurred, right? I mean, there's always the EFT news. But until the EFTs actually get signed, sealed, and delivered, we've been talking about EFTs now on Bitcoin for years and years and years, right? And there's just GBTC and MicroStrategy, effectively. Until one ETF has been signed, sealed, and delivered, it's just hype. And maybe this is one situation where this can get faded. In all seriousness, right? This could be one situation that gets faded. I'm going to look at the closing odds. Oh man, those closing odds are just super thin. Look, just look at that. It's just so thin. It's just spread out so freaking evenly throughout this whole area. Effectively, the difference between this 17 and this 14 is probably like one sample. Oh my god. Yeah. So I'm looking at this distribution, and I'm seeing this little area that's highlighted here. So you see how we have this darker blue area, and then it gets a little less blue, and then super transparent, and now, like, look, as far as I'm concerned, looking at this, my expectation is probably it goes sideways. It'll probably be in a volatile range, like probably a volatile $3,000 range above and below 3K for potentially the rest of the month. Unless Bitcoin actually cracks above this 2K. What the heck is going on up there? What the heck? I don't know. Let's try cut back the look back. That doesn't look correct. Okay, there you go. Yeah. So you can see more clearly what I mean. So obviously there is some anomalous data or something going on in the simulation. Oh man. Yeah, most of your closes are still down here, right? Most of your closes are still down here. But man, when you close bullish, are your odds for a bullish close so evenly spread out in this whole area. So, I'm anticipating Bitcoin to close green this month. That's what I'm anticipating. If the thing has a green month on it, it'll probably end up closing above 28.5. I mean, that'd be my baseline expectation. I think Bitcoin will close above 28.5, but that's not really a super aggressive target. If you're a bull, what you really want is for Bitcoin to just keep going up into the end of month to like effectively 33K, right? You just want Bitcoin to keep going up and up and up to 33K. The question being, is there enough free income in people's accounts and their wallets? People don't have that COVID stimmy money that sent us up to 66, right? This is all COVID stimmy money. And then this is all of it getting cycled off. And you had Terra Luna come down. You had FTX come down. I mean, Bitcoin is a very risk appetite pumped asset. So don't get me wrong. And those are for the major, like weekly, week to week huge swing moves, right? But for a move like this, as impressive as it is, a lot of these huge moves in Bitcoin are just due to a lack of liquidity. Like, there's a lot of people with a lot of money playing in the Bitcoin space, and while it may seem like, oh wow, $30,000 for a Bitcoin is a lot, to like the 100, 500 funds that are actively trading crypto, and the increasing amount of money that's coming in here, and all the quants that are looking at order book movements, and oh my god, like, there's not enough Bitcoin to go around to actually facilitate every single transaction, which is one of the reasons why Bitcoin is deflationary. It's that limited supply. So, in the end, Bitcoin's just going to go to infinity, theoretically. Bitcoin has a price of infinity, theoretically. That's probably the one thing I disagree with, Taleb on, right? The guy thinks Bitcoin's going to absolute zero. I'd agree with him if part of that assumption is that there's going to be like some kind of nuke or some kind of EMP or whatnot, right? Probably, ruin that we have bigger problems if those are the kinds of assumptions we're making. And there are other arguably more important markets that would be on the move in that situation. So even, entertaining that assumption is like, well, then screw Bitcoin at that point, because just the world's ending. It doesn't matter. What matters is, do you have any food that's non-radioactive? Alrighty. So in a bullish case, you just want to see this thing go up and away. But I'm looking at these probabilities here, and I'm seeing that they're all so similar. It's effectively a guess as to where Bitcoin is actually going to close here. However, I would feel more comfortable making assumptions, right, if we kept making new highs and say, a lot of people are looking at 33,000. I'd say we could quite easily go to 33,000, but man, just got to be careful, because we are kind of in no man's land here. Like, now, I like this histogram. This histogram, now that it's updated and it's kind of thinned out the bins are a more reasonable size. Yeah, we're kind of in no man's land. Yeah, based off this, you probably think that the next most likely spot to get your high is up here. Yeah. Yeah, you see how it goes from a darker red to a lighter red? Don't get me wrong, these are pretty small probabilities still, but it's technically the next most likely area for us to end up after we cross into this spot right here. You know, if your high's not here, your high is probably here around this R2.5. And that lines up with the expectation of a lot of traders for Bitcoin saying, oh, 33K, 33K. So, what is it? A lot of people looking at like fib numbers and whatnot saying that 33K is a good forecast. And I'm just like, man, it's just by skin of your teeth more likely on a probabilistic edge. But Bitcoin has other statistical factors that aren't modeled here in this indicator. So maybe someone else has something else that says, oh, maybe the odds are this instead. I'm just looking at what I got, right? Either the high is in, like, effectively right now, based off this thing, right? You switch that to a high. So either your top for the month is like right now in, or you're more or less targeting like another 2.5K move, right? Once you go past, here's something that I'll say. When you start going past $33.5, $34,000, once you start going past that, like, you can even see like the range probabilities distribution gets super thin. Pivot probabilities are saying 35% of the time. Once you go past this R3, you're just going to the moon. So I'd say we don't quite hit 33K this month. I don't think we hit 33K. But if we go past like 34, this R3.5, you're dealing with tail risk scenario, and like there's going to be, once you go past 34, you're going to start hearing people clamor for 36, 38, and 40K. Like within a couple of days from each other, just ramp up volatile move. But I don't see a situation that would create that. I'm still pretty bearish overall. I'm still pretty risk off overall. I'm happy where I am right now in my positions, and I'm waiting for a more reasonable time to get long risk assets. And by reasonable, I simply mean when you don't have such aggressive central banks, when you have more spending going on in consumers, when spending isn't contracting in consumers. And then anyone who's familiar with those problems in economies around the world are simply rolling their eyes and saying the word demographics. Right? There was an EPB video on it just today. Demographics and debt, I think. Yeah. Oh, man. How the world needs to get on to making babies, man. The world needs to get on to making babies. Yeah, that's how we'll solve the demographic issue, and that's how we'll end up also making people a lot happier. A lot of kid hating, and don't get me wrong. It's not like I probably shouldn't be talking because there's gonna be a lot of people who are like, I hate my kids, and I'm like, oh. Good for you, right? Good for you. But yeah, man. Things can work out fine. Generally net, people probably would be happier with than without them, because most people got them anyways. All right, on that little weird demographics note, I'll go ahead and end it on the day. I'll thank you all for watching and watching the recording, and I'll be here tomorrow for some week ahead stuff. And if you're in the trading group, I'll be doing the weekly group trade plan video And it's only like an hour to do trade plans for the entire next week on every single one of these assets in the watch list. It's insane. But I'm going to be spending some of today, some of tomorrow, working on some more code indicator wise. And then I'm going to do that weekly trade plan on Saturday. And then I'm going to do one more show tomorrow on Friday. And tomorrow's going to be a hell of a volatile day. So, if you're long, be careful. And if you're short, be careful. Because, Lord, if you get positive surprises from the economic data tomorrow, all these risk assets are just going to rip your face off. Like, Bitcoin goes to 32K effectively tomorrow on insanely good economic data. And then in the same respect, Bitcoin probably comes down to like 29 flat if the indications are still showing economic slowdown is occurring in most countries around the world. So you got to be real careful with the economic data coming out tomorrow. And FYI, I got a calendar here, so real quick, let me just scroll down the list here. Yeah, we're already getting some Japanese stuff. We got PMIs out of Australia. I think we got European PMIs tomorrow. Some Canadian information and US PMIs. So we're getting US PMIs and European PMIs. And if the PMIs positively perform, then that'll be a surprise and that will send markets more risk on. Otherwise, if they're flat or at consensus or below consensus, it's going to induce a little more range boundiness in some markets, a little bit more volatility in some markets, and it's probably take profit time for a lot of risk-on traders who've been able to ride this ride up for the last couple of weeks here. Anyways, thank you guys for watching, and I will see you guys tomorrow. I've been your boss, Joe Boss, and this is Plan to Profit.